conference. We're talking this morning about the National Day of Prayer, which is scheduled for Sunday, May 17th. My name is Leslie Ann Johnson. It's good to have you as usual. And we have with us today the Honorable Emmeline Pierre, Minister for Education, Human Resource Development, Religious Affairs and Information, representing the government. We also have with us Reverend Silbert Prescott, the Chairman of the Conference of Churches in Grenada, and Pastor Devon Rashid, the President of the Alliance of Evangelical Churches. And as mentioned, we are speaking this morning about the National Day of Prayer, which is coming up on Sunday. Without any further ado, I will hand over to the Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Leslie, and let me say a very warm good morning to all of our viewers and listeners to this live press conference. I want to begin this morning by extending special commendation to all of our religious leaders. Firstly, for covering this nation in prayers, for finding what I would say very creative ways to engage all of their membership during this period, and of course, persons within our nation. I want to especially recognize and commend the prayer warriors in our nation as well, those that may not be leaders in the various congregations, but who have been covering our nation in prayers. Some people may not necessarily ascribe to this belief, but I firmly believe that in times like this, it's a combination of both physical and spiritual that is needed to get the required results that we look for. And so prayers for our nation is extremely important at this time. To the members of our various churches who have been very patient in terms of observing all of the regulations, observing all of the rules that have been put forward by the government of Grenada, by the COVID committee. I want to express gratitude and appreciation to you for your patience and for your support. Some weeks ago, the Prime Minister of Grenada, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, extended a call to the Alliance of Evangelical Churches and the Conference of Churches to work together with the government to ensure that we have a day that is set aside for prayers. And so I want to express also commendation and thanks to the Alliance of Evangelical Churches and, of course, the Grenada Conference of Churches for the way that they have been able to work together to make this a reality. We have also been in consultation with those two organizations as it relates to the reopening of churches, and we may give some additional information on this. So I want to conclude these opening comments by saying this Sunday has been designated, and I do want to appeal to all members of the Grenadian public, those in the diaspora, appeal to all persons in the media to set aside time on Sunday for a National Day of Prayer. And so I give our religious ministers here the opportunity to go into all of the details that relates to Sunday.
Thank you, Minister Pierre. I would like to first of all greet the general public and the listening public here in Grenada as we meet together in this fashion to share information and to invite generally the entire nation of Grenada to join with us as we lift up the nation in prayer. I want to also underscore the words expressed by the Honorable Minister as it relates to the following the protocols and so on about the COVID-19, which is affecting each and every one of us, and we have seen the effects of it worldwide as we continue to follow the news. The Conference of Churches have always been committed to the task of making a difference in the nation of Grenada. And this opportunity to share and to lift up the nation in prayer is something that we jumped at because we see it as a very wonderful opportunity for us and a meaningful way in which we can engage the nation and remind the nation that we are with you as we travel together through this very difficult and challenging period of our lives. I want to speak to now some of the activities as it relates to the National Day of Prayer. First of all, I want to say that the Day of Prayer is for everyone. It is an opportunity for all of Grenada to come together and pray together. we are coming together under the theme Grenada for All, which is testimony to the fact that we are hoping to embrace every Grenadian. The National Day of Prayer has three components. I would be speaking to the first one, and then Pastor Ashe will speak to the others. The first aspect of the National Day of Prayer includes what I would call prayer intervals. These prayer intervals are basically periods in which we will encourage the entire nation to pause from whatever activity that they are doing and to join us in prayer. These prayer intervals would follow a simple pattern occurring every 3 hours. That is, beginning at 6 a.m., and then at 9 a.m., and then at 12 a.m., and it will continue throughout the day until 6 p.m. on the 17th of May. During these prayer pauses, a member of the Evangelical Alliance of Churches and the Conference of Churches in Grenada will respectively offer prayers for 3 minutes, which will be a total of 6 minutes. Some of the themes at these prayer pauses will be around the themes of adoration, confession, thanksgiving, intercession, and supplication. In order to give the entire nation an opportunity to benefit and to get involved, we have engaged we are engaging the media houses to help us to reach the nation. And so we are hoping that these prayer pauses or prayer moments will be broadcasted throughout the day. Some of the media houses have already indicated interest, and we are extending an invitation to the others to come on board to help us in this very worthy and important cause. Some of these media houses include the GBN Broadcasting, WeFM, MTV, also some of the social media platforms, for example, Facebook pages. We have Mikey Live, GIS Facebook, the Evangelical Alliance Facebook page, and the GBN Facebook will also be broadcasting these prayer pauses. As I said before, this is an opportunity for the entire nation of Grenada to participate. Therefore, it is also an invitation for the faith-based organizations to get involved, if not in a main way by being involved in these prayer pauses, but by organizing their own prayer activities throughout the entire day. From the perspective of the Conference of Churches in Grenada, we have engaged all our churches and invited them to organize their own prayer activities to supplement these that we have planned officially. And so I am just extending an invitation to all of the other faith-based organizations to do the same. For now, I think this is where I would pause.
Thank you, Pastor Devon Rashi. The floor is yours.
Good day. It's really a pleasure to be here and to be able to engage in this press conference. I believe that this marks a historical moment for our country, and it is one of the greatest spots when we are able to unite as a nation to come together, especially for such a high cause as prayer. On behalf of the Alliance of Evangelical Churches, we'd like to express our gratitude to government for seeing the need to call for prayer at this time, and I think we ought not to take that for granted. We see in the Word of God how important it is when your leaders recognize the lordship of God and the need for His divine intervention in the affairs of men. And so we are delighted to be able to be part of this. We are delighted to be able to join together with the Conference of Churches, with government and other faith-based groups in order to do this. The Alliance certainly have been engaged in many responses in light of COVID-19, and this is just one addition to what we have been doing. I know that many persons have followed a lot of the initiatives that we have been doing. Our members have always wanted to see a National Day of Prayer, and in fact, prior to this, we were in discussion with government to have some type of National Day of Prayer. And so we want this to be clear that prayer have always been valued, and a lot of prayer has already gone up in light of COVID-19 and also in light of other situations. I know many churches have had their own prayer initiative. The Alliance certainly joined with evangelical alliances globally sometime in March to observe a global day of prayer, in which we had called on the nation to pray. And so I do not think that prayer could ever be too much, and we are delighted again to be able to pray. Our member churches are very excited about this Sunday, and in fact, many churches have already indicated the activities that they have organized. As we'll appreciate, many of our member churches have been utilizing the social media platforms, Zoom primarily on Facebook, and a lot of these activities will be around that area, right? The pastors of the Alliance of Evangelical Churches will also be engaged in prayer via our Facebook page on Sunday morning at 6 o'clock. But in light of the activities for the National Day of Prayer, Reverend Prescott highlighted the times of prayer alerts that will be taking place, and we're looking forward to this. But we have other activities that we are encouraging and inviting the nation to join us for as part of this National Day of Prayer. One such activity is our National Prayer Hour, a National Hour of Prayer, and this will be a virtual prayer hour that will bring together persons from various sectors of our society. We'll have representatives on this from the Parliament, we'll have representative from government, and we'll have representation from the opposition. We are happy that we are able to bring together those entities for this National Hour of Prayer. And in fact, we are happy that the nation will have the opportunity to participate in this on the various social media platforms, Facebook, and also will have the opportunity to participate by way of the television and other mainstream media. The National Hour of Prayer will see us praying from the Zoom platform for various, right, sectors of our society. We'll be praying with the RGPF, we'll be praying for frontline workers in the medical fraternity, we'll be praying for educators, and obviously we'll be praying for the different arms of government, right? And so we are looking forward to this, and we are encouraging the nation to tune in. This will happen at 4:30 p.m. on Sunday, and as was mentioned, we intend to utilize the GIS Facebook page and Mikey Live, MTV Facebook page. We also will stream via Hard Talk and some of these other platforms for that prayer session, and I'm sure there are other media that will come on board. As was expressed, we have some media houses that have already expressed interest in being part of whatever we're doing for the National Day of Prayer, and all other media houses are encouraged and will love to have you on board. So we will also have our Prime Minister as part of this National Prayer Hour. The third event that we are having is an hour of praise, right? An hour of praise. I know when we did shout out to frontline workers, many persons were anticipating we'll have a time when we can really shout out to God. And now we have an hour of praise, and this has been in the works, and we would like, I know our nation is very excited about it. There are a lot of people who are gearing up. We are appealing, though, that during that hour, persons will do that within the confines of their homes, and their spaces, your yard space and your homes. We are not advocating that you go out on the streets and so forth. So we are encouraging that we observe the protocol. There is no distance in praise, yes? So you are able to stay within the confines of your home and in whatever creative ways to lift your praise and thanksgiving to God. I know that we are creative people, we are an expressive people, and certainly during that hour you'll be able to do this. And this will happen from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., right? We'll have this hour of praise when you are really able to lift up praise and thanksgiving unto God. So we're encouraging all sectors, all family, get your posse, your crew, and everybody, and set aside the time to lift up praise. You and your household within the confines of your home to do this. I know many church leaders are planning to also do things from their balconies and such like, so we are looking forward to this. And again, we are encouraging all churches to organize your own activities as part of the National Day of Prayer and other religious groupings. Everybody's invited, as was articulated by Reverend Prescott. This is a Grenada activity. This is a time for us to come together as a nation. This is not a time for us to separate. We come together, and a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. So when we go into the face of God, there must be unity. And I believe as we unite in prayer, that God is going to answer.
Thank you very much, Pastor Devon Rashi. Colleagues, the floor is now open for questions. I'm sure you would have heard a lot. The floor is now open for questions. Right, while we are with our colleagues, Minister, maybe I can ask you, how important is, in this COVID era, how important is the work of the church and the relationship that the church has with the public in ensuring that we maintain some sort of, if I could use the word, sanity?
Extremely important, Leslie, and as you know, this is a very stressful time for many people, and not just many people, of all ages. So children are affected by this, adults are affected by this, or seniors. And so I know many of our churches have been providing counseling support, have been encouraging people. I mean, even publicly, they have been doing that. But what I think is beautiful about this period is that our churches, most of them have been able to find ways to continue their regular activities. So I can speak specific to many of our churches with weekday activities, so different groups meeting, and they've been doing so virtually, and I am certain having as much fun and giving as much adoration and praise and worship to God as they have done. The only difference is that you're not in one physical space. So I think many of our people out there have been able to survive this period because of the prayers and the support that our churches have been providing. And I'm just thinking, what would it be like if for 1.5 months you just would not be able to make any spiritual connection with anybody? I mean, I'm sure we would have had far more negative effects coming out of this. So let us not underestimate what our churches have done. And again, I really want to commend them. I have seen persons on Zoom, on different, they've even gone as far as having concerts online, press services online. And I really want to commend our churches because this is so important for our nation. And we ought not to underestimate what they have done.
Thank you. Good morning, Linda Straker. You have questions?
Morning all. My question, well, I have a number of questions, but I'm going to start with, in listening, the day is Sunday. I know we do have persons who worship on a Saturday. Are they left out of the equation? Were they not part of the discussion? So can you shed some light as to why it is not happening also on a Saturday? And my second question has to do with, are there discussions now taking place with regard to reopening of churches formally, and what kind of protocols are being discussed as consideration are taken to open up churches for worship on particular days? Thank you for now.
So I'm sure Reverend Prescott would want to add to that, but I would just start with the second question to say that consultation has been taking place over the past week. We are now on what is called the final draft of the protocols, and I believe between tomorrow and Monday, those protocols will be announced, and we will be basically speaking to the reopening of churches, which I anticipate would be within another week or so. Added to that, I just want to say personally, I had conversation with the Adventist leadership, and I'm sure Reverend Prescott would add from their end what was done. I personally reached out, and they were quite comfortable with that day. Because of the current situation, we were already remotely at home, and everybody would be at home on Sunday, and we decided that this was quite fine in the current situation. Had it been normal times, of course, we normally make accommodation of Saturday and Sunday, but because of the current situation, we all agreed that Sunday was suitable.
Just to add to what Minister Pierre has already said, the Seventh-day Adventist is what we would call, they have a place on the Conference of Churches as permanent observers. And so many of the activities that have been organized by the Conference of Churches have been also, we have been shared with the Seventh-day Adventists. And so in our planning for this Day of Prayer, we really engage the Adventists, and they are quite willing, and as a matter of fact, they would be sharing in our prayer activity on the 17th. Just to extend a bit, I think prayer sometimes is not an activity that is limited. It's an activity that churches do every day. And so the Adventists, on their own worship day, I'm sure that they too will organize activities on that specific day, and prayer would be part of their regular worship experience. I mean, on the Saturday and the Sunday as well.
Thank you. Rena Pierre, good morning. Go right ahead.
Good morning. My question is, what sort of impact are you expecting due to the event, and would we be seeing different dominations, religious dominations within the 3 hours? I know you said every 3 hours we'll be having prayer. Would there be different religious denominations doing that? So let's say 6 o'clock you had Adventists, and 3 hours after you would have Anglican. Is this what we'll be seeing?
Thanks for the question, Rena. And certainly this is a national prayer event, and it will engage wide platitudes of different denominations. In fact, as was mentioned by Reverend Prescott, we will be having each prayer alert representatives from both the conference and the Alliance of Evangelical Churches. Both organizations are made up of many denominations. The Alliance of Evangelical Churches have in excess of 20 denominations that are part of our membership, and based on what you'll be seeing in the prayer alert and also within the National Prayer Hour, you will find that every prayer alert, you will see persons from different denominations. And I can speak to also the representative from the conference who has been identified for the prayer alert. Every alert will have different persons from different denominations, and also you'll be seeing same during the prayer hour. So yes, to answer your question related to denominational representation, that is what it will look like. Regarding the impact that we're expecting, well, the impact of prayer certainly primarily is to be of a spiritual nature. Prayer is directed to God, and this is not an exercise that we're just doing to say that we have prayed. We really want our nation to take this serious, and one of the things that we are appealing to is for persons within the media, radio and television on the day of prayer to play content in keeping with the spirit of prayer, because this is a very serious exercise that we are engaging in. If you're home and you're going to be playing music, remember that Sunday is the National Day of Prayer, and be mindful of that within your content. We want to encourage this type of solemnness and recognition of the Lordship of Christ. And so we are saying that the impact must be one where a country really bow to the Lordship of God and pray on that day. And that's the type of impact primarily we're expecting.
Also, I wanted to ask, you spoke about other activities. Does these activities go beyond the day of prayer? Should we see more of this happening and more activities happening?
Well, there have been activities that have been happening prior to the day of prayer, and there will be activities after the day of prayer. But in terms of the activities that we have spoken about today, these activities are specific to the National Day of Prayer, right? So the prayer alerts will happen on the National Day of Prayer, but I know both the conference and the Alliance of Evangelical Churches have many initiatives that we have undertaken that pertains to prayer and also response to many of the needs that are out there. So yes, we'll see activities happening afterwards, and as I said, we have been doing many things before this.
Thank you.
Linda, are you there? You had some other questions you wanted to ask? All right, Linda seems to have disappeared.
I think
You're there. Go right ahead.
Yes. My question is for the minister and probably the two other religious clergies. One of the regulations within the Emergency Power Act is the no hosting of weddings and funerals. Any of them in a position to say the amount of weddings that was probably cancelled, and whether or not now the minister can tell us if consideration of weddings is part of the protocol in reopening churches, or is it only just for worshiping?
So maybe we want to talk about the data first. I don't know if we have been collecting that kind of data.
To respond to the question in relation to weddings and funerals, as it relates to funerals, there have been special days assigned for funerals so far, which have been happening. Weddings, I'm not sure because we do not have any data such. I believe some of our member churches may have had to postpone some weddings. But as I said before, we don't have any kind of data to support that at this present time.
With regards to the regulations and whether weddings would be included, yes, they would be included, but there would be serious restrictions on numbers. So you can expect that. I don't know, Linda, what you're planning.
All right, you have another question, Linda?
Not for now.
Okay. Minister, counselors within the community, I know we're talking about the reopening of churches and all that, but just to ensure that people at the community level, they're catered for, what are we doing in that aspect?
Very good question. About a week ago, we announced that churches can open their offices specifically for counseling and other administrative functions. I don't think that word has gotten out there sufficiently, but I can say it's reflected again in the regulations that would be released within the next 48 hours or so. The churches, many of them have been using their offices to provide counseling, some on the phone, some, one-on-one visits. But I'm really, really happy that our people at the community level do have a place that they can go if there is need for urgent face-to-face counseling. Apart from all of the other services that government has been providing through Ministry of Social Development, which is generally by phone, but we do have the support of the churches to back that up at the community level, and we are indeed blessed to have those kind of services available in a time like this.
Thank you, Minister. Anybody else with questions? Okay, we seem very quiet today, Rena. We seem very quiet today. Rena, are you indicating that you have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
My final question, could anyone tell me what are the financial impact relating to COVID-19 to the churches as it relates to financial issues and the operation?
Rena, churches have not been able to meet physically, and for the most part, many of our churches do not have systems in place to collect offerings and so forth online. However, I know that in terms of financial impact, the mindset of our leadership of our churches have not so much been on the financial impact on the church. We have been more concerned about how our membership who attend these churches are doing in our communities. There are many persons who are in need at this time, and what we have been trying to do is to utilize resources that is available to the church to respond to those needs. So we have been working on delivering care packages, and I know that our member churches have done thousands of these packages in response to needs that are out there. We have also been focusing on trying to reach out to persons in very tangible ways, and I know sometimes people do not see it out there in public, and that is because of the nature of how the church functions. We do not necessarily publicize all of the efforts, but the Alliance of Evangelical Churches did hold meetings during this period with our membership to find out what churches are doing in response to the needs, and we have churches who have actually been given financial support to the members in this time, going into the bank and monies that have been saved, taking out from those funds and responding to the needs. So while yes, churches have not been able to collect tithes and offering, we have been focus on responding to the needs of our membership. That is primary to us in this time.
I think also churches are quite cognizant of the fact that many people have been affected financially as well, because of the unemployment situation in many places. There would be added pressure for individuals in terms of sustaining their own selves. And I think the focus of the church, while churches, to be honest, will have their own financial overheads to meet on a monthly basis, and I don't think we can really deny that. As Pastor Rush said, I think we really have to underscore the purpose of the church is to meet the needs of individuals within the community, and I think if we forget that, I think we would be really doing ourselves and the gospel an injustice.
Great. I think Nancy Maguire has a question. Let me just see if I can get to it. Oh, she's asking to clarify the list, the groups of churches that will be participating in Sunday's activity.
Sunday's activity is a national activity, and as far as we are aware, all churches within the state of Grenada are invited to participate, and not just churches, but all religious groupings are invited to be part of this. And so this is a national event, and so this is for everyone without exception, without exemptions. And if you are out there and you start a church today, you're also invited to be part of it. Every church, right, is totally invited to be on board and be part of the National Day of Prayer, right? And if churches need information, you can reach out to either the Alliance of Evangelical Churches or the Grenada Conference of Churches. You can find Alliance on Facebook. You can message us there. There's also a tab that you can WhatsApp us directly, and you can email, I believe, the Conference of Churches, right? And so that you can receive the information. But emailing us or contacting us is not even a pre-requirement. We just, if you wish for additional information, we will love to share that with you. But certainly, everybody is invited. And let me just say this. I know that we cannot gather physically, but if you within your homes, right, you can be part of that on the social media platforms, and you bring your family together. You know, Sunday is National Day of Prayer. Even if you usually do not attend a particular church online at this time, right, pull your family together and say, let us pray for the nation. It is our National Day of Prayer. Let your children be aware that our nation is praying, right? And so this is a national thing. When we look into the Bible and nations go into prayer, it is important that everybody is involved. And I think it is commendable that on Sunday, as part of this, we are going to have the Prime Minister and other members of Parliament and the leader, the opposition and so forth involved in this National Day of Prayer to show the type of national unity that we are promoting in this time.
I know some churches have youth groups, youth leaders. Any one of them would be representing like the youth community on Sunday?
Well, our youth has been very active in this time. In fact, the Alliance have been having a series of concerts that have been happening on Fridays online, and I'm certain that the youth will be involved in organizing their prayer. They'll be having prayer activities taking place. I know many of them are using the Zoom and the Facebook platform to do this, and so yes, our youth will be very much involved and at the forefront of all of this. We understand our nation is majority youth, and certainly we expect their involvement.
Just to add to Leslie, and the representative from education that would be praying will be a young person, a student.
I think also we want to remind persons that there would be certain persons on the forefront of this activity, but that doesn't exclude those who, as we have said before, who are in their homes, who have churches, even not necessarily even other religious groups as well, would be invited to share in whatever way they feel comfortable doing so. Thanks.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Anybody else? Arena, go right ahead.
I wanted to ask, what other activities have the church been partaking in as it relates to their members? As it relates to the psychological issue, being home, dealing with this crisis?
I can speak from the perspective of the Alliance, and I'm sure Reverend Prescott will speak us about this from the conference perspective. But we have been privileged to have been in contact with the Ministry of Social Development and an initiative that they undertook relating to the psychosocial needs of our people at this time. And we find it to be a very commendable initiative. Our second Vice President, Bishop Esther Batiste, who is also a qualified Nutetic counselor, has been involved in that whole process. We have churches that have been engaged in counseling. We are thankful that church offices were permitted to be open in recent times, and persons have been utilizing the counseling services. Prior to that, pastors were able to give counseling and render pastoral care on virtual platforms. We also, as I mentioned, is responding to the tangible needs in a very active way, because we know that this is priority at this time. And I think a lot of what we do from the Alliance perspective is in line with this. We have done a series called Messages of Hope, where many of the church leaders recorded messages and sent out, and those were circulated. We also undertook to do Hope the Concert, right? And which was viewed by over 20,000 Grenadians, yes. And on Facebook, it was a live concert. And the idea of that concert was to utilize creative expressions, right, to bring across the message of hope and so forth. And as was mentioned earlier, the church has really been making full use of the social media and virtual platforms. In fact, I know some of our member churches do have days when there are counseling hotlines on Zoom where you can just come in and have a Zoom counseling session with a pastor, with a counselor. There are churches who have been engaged in doing counseling actively online in a general sense, yes. So there's a lot of different response mechanisms that have been implemented by the church, and I really feel that this is one of the benefits of COVID-19, in that it showed us as churches how we can make use of those platforms to expand what we are doing. And even while we are not able to meet physically, we have been able to engage even more persons than when we were able to meet physically.
I would also like to add that from the Conference of Churches perspective, many of the churches have ongoing programs to support the needs of persons within the community. And so even though churches have not been meeting, churches have still been able to gather their care packages and distribute them to their members on a monthly basis. I can speak of that for my own particular church, and I know many of the other churches within the conference of churches have been doing the same. Many of the churches as well have been responding or relating to their own constituents, or members or parishioners, as we might call them, through the social media. As you have heard before, we have been having weekly services, other weekly activities, which includes prayer, Bible study, and so on. These activities have been happening, and I think what have really come home to me is the far reaching impact that these activities have had. Because, for example, on some of our prayer activities, I have seen persons who I have not seen in church for some time. So the benefits of these kind of activities, it's very far-reaching, and I think as a church, I think it has opened the door and opened our eyes to a lot of ways in which we can really still find ways to function as a church and help to spread the gospel to persons.
But even outside of the spiritual, I know of one church tonight having an online debate among the young people about the opening of the borders.
Okay.
So even outside of the spiritual activities, they have been engaging members in a wide range of areas, and which I think is so very healthy. And I really want to say that I do hope that whenever we open the doors and we're back in those buildings, that we remember that we do have a platform to reach people who may not want to come through those doors. I really do hope that the church doesn't abandon this excellent opportunity for outreach.
Yes. I just want to quickly add that even this face mask that I'm wearing was made by a group in our church and provided to persons. Thanks.
Yes, I do believe, Minister, that certainly we would see many churches expand the programs as it relates to social media. In fact, members of the Alliance of Evangelical Churches are currently having discussions as to how we can continue expanding what we do on social media and even become better at it, because we realize that there is a real great opportunity here to reach many unreached persons. And so I think this appeal from you, it will be well taken, and you will see a lot of things happening online. Yes, certainly.
Colleagues, we're getting ready to wrap up. Rena, were you about to say something else before we wrap up? Yeah, unmute your mic.
Okay. So my only question was understanding that this initiative is something that's related to praying for the country. Just to ask, has there any religious denomination not welcomed the initiative at any point?
Not that we know of, and it would be very surprising if anybody resists prayer. So we believe that everybody will be welcoming of the initiative, and certainly everybody's welcome to be part of the initiative. And so if you know, persons wish to be part, feel free to jump on board. This is about our country and God. You know, it is not about denomination, it is not about religion, it is even not about groupings, right? You don't have to feel like a very religious person even, right? You just need to open up your heart and really make this about God. And this is what we hope will happen on Sunday, that this will be something that we as a nation do for God, and we come together with it. And I want to just say that I know that oftentimes there are initiatives, it is easy to cherry pick and to find and stop issues and controversies. And I want to appeal to people within our public domain that let this be a time when we can truly unite as a nation on the issue of prayer. Let us not find divisiveness in this. Let us not find anything that can, separate us in this. When we look at the spirit of Pentecost, we see a spirit of unity, a spirit of coming together for this one cause. And I believe that our prayer will have so much significance if God sees a country praying together, notwithstanding our religion, notwithstanding our creed or denomination, notwithstanding our political affiliations or whatever other differences that we may have. We put aside all of this on Sunday and we go to God as a nation, to pray to God as a nation.
Thank you, colleagues. That's it. All right. I think we have exhausted all our questions. You have a comment you want to make? All right, so I'll give you the opportunity, Minister, and I know, gentlemen, if you'll have any parting words that you'll want to say. Minister, we'll start with you.
So I want to close as I started by commending and expressing sincerest appreciation to the leaders of our various churches and all of those who have been praying and covering this nation. I'm convinced without a shadow of a doubt that those prayers were heard and those prayers were answered. We still need those prayers because we have not come to the end of this. We are still going through very uncertain times, very difficult times, and we need every support that we can receive from our spiritual leaders of this nation. I want to also appeal to the media, whether it's social media, mainstream media, we appeal to everyone. I believe it would be very easy to reach the Conference of Churches, very easy to reach Alliance of Evangelical Churches, very easy to reach Ministry of Religious Affairs as to how you can get on board if you are not yet on board, because we want every single media house or platform to be on board. And I want to encourage to every Grenadian, whether you're at home, whether you're in the region, whether you're in the diaspora, wherever you are, this is a Grenadian thing. And I'm going to ask Reverend Prescott to repeat the theme when he ends, because this is all about Grenada, right? And I really want to encourage us to do 3 things on Sunday. One, that we follow the prayer alert. It starts at 6 a.m. and on those platforms, those radio and television stations, you will have someone praying. I urge you to follow and to participate. Then you have the hour of prayer. I want to encourage you to join the leaders of this nation as we pray for Grenada and we pray for all of our hopes, our aspirations, all of our concerns. We bring them together before God. And of course, that hour of praise unto God be all glory, honor, and praise on Sunday.
Thank you. I want to close by underscoring the commitment of the Conference of Churches in Grenada to the cause of Grenada. Whatever is in the national interest, we are quite willing and are always happy to join that cause with and to collaborate with many of the stakeholders who share that common cause. And it is to that I would want to say that this is also a wonderful opportunity for us to join with the Alliance of Churches, which have been and also with the Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs, as we really share together in this very wonderful opportunity. I want to also say as well that many people might be asking that, or might be saying, or might be tempted to think that, we are praying and it is only when the bad things are happening that we come together and pray and then we go back to our same old ways. I think that kind of understanding of prayer, I think, it's not what really and truly I think prayer is really all about. I think prayer is an opportunity for people, for us to draw near to God and for us to allow God's will to be engrafted in our will. So it's not necessarily we are coming together and bringing our shopping list to God, asking God to supply them. But I think we are coming to try to open ourselves to God in order that God will show us the way as we seek to find ways to cope, as we seek to find ways to minister to people in situations like these.
Thank you. Pastor Rashid?
One of the scriptures that always comes to mind when I think about the matter of prayer is a scripture that says, if I be lifted up, I will draw men to me. And I really believe that if in this time we make this central about Christ, about lifting up God, about lifting up our nation to God, then God will draw us nearer to Him. And certainly as a nation, we need to be nearer to God. And this is my appeal to us even as I close. COVID-19 in my mind has been a wake-up call to all of us about the things that really matter, material things and the things that we take for granted oftentimes, sometimes are not the most important things to us. What becomes important is life, family, our relationship with God. We are here today. We do not know if we're going to be here tomorrow. And this is just the reality of life. And I want to appeal to our nation to let us utilize this time as a nation to draw closer to God. Let us reflect on our values as a people, and let us really be that nation that our pledge, our national motto, our anthem speaks about, our people who is ever conscious of God. And I'm sure if we remain conscious of God, then we will really aspire, we'll really build, we'll really advance as a people. It's really a privilege for the Alliance of Evangelical Churches to be part of this, and we are humbled by this opportunity. And again, high commendation to our national leaders for recognizing the need and value of prayer at this time. And it is good to be able to collaborate with the Grenada Conference of Churches on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You forgot. Go right ahead.
Just want to remind persons of the theme again. It is Grenada for God, and it is for each and every Grenadian. So we trust that each and every Grenadian will join us. Thank you. God bless.
Grenada for God for each and every Grenadian?
No, Grenada for God.
Just Grenada for God. All right, great. Thank you so much, Minister and gentlemen. We have with us this morning the Honorable Emmeline Pear, Minister for Education, Human Resource Development, Religious Affairs and Information, and of course as well, Pastor Devon Roche, President of the Alliance of Evangelical Churches, and Reverend Silbert Prescott, Chairman of the Conference of Churches in Grenada, talking about the National Day of Prayer. It is a collaborative effort, and we're asking all of Grenada to please join us on Sunday. I'm Leslie Ann Johnson. Thank you so much for viewing. Have a great day, everybody.